All right, in this lesson, it's time to check out some of the line drawing tools you have here in CorelDRAW X4. So far in this chapter, we've drawn some shapes, advanced shapes, perfect shapes. Now it's time to explore the line drawing tools, and we're going to continue to use our brand new file created here in CorelDRAW. I'm on page 3 of 3. That's where we left off with our perfect shape. So if you've been following along, let's go up to the Pick tool. Come down below here and click on the plus sign after 3 of 3. Creates a brand new page. It's portrait though, so we're going to come up here and make it landscape. If you've jumped to this lesson, don't worry about it. All you need is a brand new file. Click the new button up here. Control N is a shortcut on your keyboard, and then come over to your landscape button to turn it on its side. You'll have one page. I've got 4. Really doesn't matter as long as you've got a blank canvas to work with. Just before we start exploring the line drawing tools, I'm going to go over here to the toolbox and click on my rectangle tool. So I need to click and hold this down. The last one I used was a 3-point rectangle. I just want a simple rectangle, so I choose that. Click and drag across like a widescreen TV. I'm going to color it gray, a light gray on the inside by clicking it over here in the color palette. And that's going to come in handy a little bit later on in this lesson. Back to the Pick tool, and I'll click outside the selected rectangle to deselect it. Let's start with the first of the line tools, which is usually the default. You'll find it here, the 5th button down. Now right now mine says Interactive Connector Tool. That's because I used it in a previous lesson to connect flowcharting shapes. I'm going to hold this down. The real default is the freehand tool, and that's the one we're going to select, so give it a click. And now it's time to draw freehand, and like the name kind of implies, we can click and hold our mouse button down and just draw a line. I'm going to do a wavy line here, and watch what happens when I let go of my mouse button. See how it's nicely smoothed out for me. I've got a nice curvy line drawn freehand. I'm going to hit delete. If I wanted to draw something freehand and join it at the end, all I have to do is come back where I started, and when I see that little arrow appear, let go, and now I've drawn a shape, a curvy shape. That's all according to some of the defaults that you see up here in your property bar. First of all, the line style is just a solid line, and these 2 fields on the left and the right are for arrowheads. So if you wanted to have arrows at either end, or both ends for that matter, you could do that just by clicking these drop downs and selecting the appropriate style. But you can also select a thickness. I'm going to just make that a little bit thicker. I'm going to go up to 2. And over here where you see 100, that's our freehand smoothing. If you click and hold this down, you'll see the sliders all the way to the right at 100, indicating full smoothing is turned on. If you prefer that jagged look, you can move it all the way to 0. Somewhere in between will give you a different level of smoothing, but 100 is good right at the top. With that still selected, hit your delete key to remove it. What if you want a straight line? Let's try and do a nice straight line on an angle. I'm going to start up here in the top left, and I'm going to click and drag down, and when I let go, yeah, there's a bit of a curve in there, isn't there? I wasn't able to draw it perfectly straight. So I'm going to hit delete and show you that I was using the wrong technique. With the freehand tool, you don't have to click and drag. You can click once, let go. Now move your mouse, and you can see it's going to draw a straight line on whatever angle you choose. So if I wanted this angle right here, I click, and my line is drawn. I'm going to hit delete and show you that the constrain option that we used when drawing rectangles and ellipses and other shapes also works with your line tool. Hold down your control key on the keyboard. Now click once, and as you move across, look how straight and level that line stays. As I move down, you'll see it's going to snap to 15-degree increments, and that's the default setting here in Draw. Of course, that can be changed. If you want it to be perfectly flat, keep holding that control key down, click to end your line, and then let go of the control key on the keyboard. There's your straight line. I'm going to hit delete and show you another option. Still using control because I want straight lines. I'm going to click up here, holding control. I'm going to move down at this angle, which is about a 45-degree angle. I'm going to click once, and you'll notice that my mouse pointer is hovering over that node at the end of the line. That's where I left off. That means I can actually click again to draw another line that's connected. So I'm going to move all the way over here to the right, click once, I'm over a node, click again, and come up here, and notice with control held down I can't actually connect it. I have to let go of the control key to be able to go to that node because it's not a perfect angle within those 15-degree increments. So I click, and there's my triangle. So one way to draw your own shapes is with the freehand tool. I'm going to delete this because there is a better way. So I'm going to delete that and go back to my line tool here. Click and hold that down. Notice the other ones. There's a Bezier tool, a very complicated tool for drawing curves and lines together. There's artistic media. We'll save that for later because you can adjust the thickness. It's like working with a paintbrush and get some nice artistic effects. There's a pen, works just like writing. It's kind of like the freehand when you're holding down your mouse button. Polyline, though, allows you to draw some of those shapes without so many clicks like we saw with the freehand tool. So let's check out the Polyline tool. This time I'm just going to click once, go down to this corner, click once, move over to the right. See how it's already drawing the shape? I'm going to hold Control to keep the bottom flat, and I'm going to double click down here and it's automatically closing it up for me. There is my triangle. Just like that. So less clicks with the Polyline tool. I'm going to hit delete because there's a little bit more to the Polyline tool. You can actually combine curves and straight lines. So I'm going to start down here. I'm going to click once, hold down Control so I keep a nice level line. Click again. This time I'm going to come up slightly. I'm going to click now and drag. And you can see I've got curvy lines here. Come down to that node and double click. Closes it up and now I've got a piece of the puzzle there. So I've combined some straight lines with some curved lines thanks to the Polyline tool. You can see how that could be useful in your drawings. Let's hit delete to delete that and move on to another tool. Click and hold the Polyline tool button down to get the fly out, and let's go to that 3-point curve. Now we saw the 3-point ellipse and rectangle tools earlier. Now we're going to create a 3-point curve. It's the same way. Notice that you're getting hints over here on the right if you haven't closed up your hints docker, telling you how to define the start and end points first of all. So in other words, we need to click where we want to start the curve and then drag to where we want the curve to end. So let's say we want to put a nice curve on top of this. Go to this node, click and drag over to the other node, and when I let go, now watch what happens when I move my pointer. I'm actually going to preview the curve I'm about to draw. So if I wanted this to look as though it were a handle on a purse or something, I could click. I've got my curved line. All I have to do now is go up here and change some of the attributes, like maybe make it a little bit thicker. I'm going to go up to 4. I'm going to hit delete to remove my 3-point curve. Let's look at another one now. Let's hold this down. We've seen the connector. We're going to skip over to the dimension tool, and that's why we have our flat panel TV here in the middle of our page. Let's get the measurements for this. This is a great tool for technical drawings, floor plans, and so on, because you've got a lot of options up here on your property bar. Let's start with a vertical measurement. So I'm going to click on this second button, Vertical Dimension Tool. Now all I have to do is go to this node to know I'm right at the corner. And I'm going to come down to this node down here and click. Now I'm going to move out and towards the center and click a third time. And it measures it for me. Notice it's 2.72 inches perfectly. I know that's the exact measurement. And if I want to be more precise, I could change it to maybe more decimal places, like 4, for example. 2.7236. Look at that. That's very precise. Let's try it across the bottom now. We need to switch over to our horizontal dimension tool by clicking it here in the property bar. Go to this node, click and drag across to the other node, and click. Now we come down. Wherever you want that number to appear is where you're going to click a third time. And there it is, 4.74. I'm going to bump that up as well to 4 decimal places to get the exact measurement. Now the important one when talking about TV screens, the diagonal. We can get that as well by clicking the diagonal or slanted dimension tool. Again, we go to a node, click, go to the next node, click, and now we just have to choose where that number is going to appear. We want it out here, or right in the center. I'm going to go to the center and click, and notice it's 5.46 inches. Not a very big screen, but I'm going to bump that up to 4 decimal places so it matches the rest. You can see it's in inches. Other options, we could change that if we wanted to show IN instead of the inches symbol. The word inches, millimeters, picas and points. Look at all the different options. And when you get into feet and yards and so on. Then you're working with different drawings that are drawn to scale. For example, if you're doing a floor plan, you might want it in feet. And then you'd have to set up your scale ahead of time, and then it would actually measure the number of feet for you. So it's a great way to do some of those technical things like floor plans, or even technical drawings when discussing instruments and things that need to be measured precisely. So I like that. All right, I'm going to click out here to not select anything. Click on my pick tool. Click out here to deselect to see what that looks like. So those are some of the line drawing tools that you have available to you right here from your toolbox. So keep those in mind. They're very useful depending on your scenario, and we're going to be using them as we move through some of the lessons coming up, working with objects. Next, though, we're going to talk about modifying some of your shapes and your objects and even your lines and curves, because they've got nodes, and you need to know how to change the shape of one of your objects, whether it's a line, a curve, or any other object for that matter. So coming up next, the shape tool.